What's up? Well, today, actually, wait a minute. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. This is a very big video here. There's a lot of shit to take in. This is my guide to installing a remote start in a 2007 Envoy. First of all, I'm an amateur. This is just a hobby for me. Now, I know this might sound crazy, but this is not meant to be a how-to video. I don't want to give anyone the idea that they can just watch a YouTube video and go out and cut up their ignition harness and have a working truck at the end of the day. If you guys are going to use this as a guide, definitely use the table of contents to skip ahead to the part that you're having a problem with. You know what I'm saying? Fire up a fat one, sit back, and let's go for a ride. Well, we're not really going for a ride. We're going to watch this documentation of this process. Yeah. I want a remote start. Well, that should be pretty obvious. I also want a second layer of security. Ruby Red does come with a factory security system. If somebody does try to steal the truck, it's going to honk the horn. It's got an immobilizer. There is some factory security. A second layer of security isn't going to hurt anything. You know what I'm saying? I want one key fob. My keychain's already starting to look like the keymaker from the Matrix. I want one key fob to operate the remote start as well as lock and unlock the doors. This is what I want. So I know what I want. It's time to do some research. The two things I'm going to research, I'm going to research different aftermarket remote start systems, and I'm also going to research the vehicle itself. Now, for aftermarket remote start systems, reputation is everything. Over the last 2 decades, Directed has always done me right, whether it's Avidal or Python, Viper, whatever. They've always done me right. You're kind of new to this, doing some research. You want to find out for yourself who's good, asking people who already have an aftermarket remote start system. See what works for them, any problems they may have had. You can also check out the 12volt.com. There's a lot of remote start information out there from, well, pretty much every manufacturer. At least the legit ones, not the knockoff shit you see on eBay or Amazon. One thing that I would not use if I was looking for a new aftermarket remote start system would be customer reviews. You know, a social media influencer might get paid big bucks to say the crap you start 5,000 is the best thing that he ever bought. And he doesn't give a fuck if it's a piece of shit. He just wants to get paid. So fuck all those influencers. Fuck all their reviews. Don't go by what they say. Alright, so I gotta research Ruby Red too, or like I said, any vehicle I'm working on, but I'm doing this in Ruby Red. I know that Ruby Red has a factory immobilizer. I know that Ruby Red's powered door locks are over the data system. I know that the rear door ajar system is not over data. And I also know that Ruby Red has the second accessory. In the automotive repair field, it's called third ignition. It's a little overcomplicated with some of the terminology, but it's not as bad as it sounds, trust me. So we have data for the factory immobilizer, pass lock 2. We have data for the power door locks. And we don't have data for the rear door ajar status. Well, what the fuck is data? Data is the computer network system in a car. This is an example of 4 modules with a data wire spliced to each of them. This data wire is how they talk to each other. So our first example is what happens when you actually start an Envoy or a Trailblazer. So you put the key in the hole and you turn the key to start. Well, 2 things happen. So the first thing that happens is the little pass lock sensor sends a signal to the BCM that says, hey, I have not been tampered with, I'm okay. The second thing that happens is that the actual start wire goes not to the starter, but to the PCM. So the PCM gets this start signal. The PCM gets a data message from the BCM which says, hey, pass lock said it's all good in the hood. With both of those signals right, the PCM is going to send a signal to the starter relay which starts the truck. So in this example, the data part is the part where the BCM sends a signal to the PCM. The second example of data is when you try to roll down the passenger front window from the driver's window switch. I know this is a terrible drawing, whatever. The way that works is when you press the button for the passenger front window, the driver's door module sends a data message to the passenger door module which then rolls the window up or down. Now, why is this important for this remote start? Well, think about this for a second. We want to try to start the car without putting the key in the ignition. If we tied in the start wire to the output of a remote starter, yeah, the PCM is going to get that start signal, but it's never going to get the okay from the BCM that it's cool to start the truck. It won't work. Now, there is a workaround for pass lock, but I'm trying to add a layer of security, not take a layer away. And this is where the interface is going to come in. I'm just going to call it INT because I don't have much room. The interface is going to tie into this data network. So it's going to be there to say, hey, it's okay to start the truck, and then it'll work even though we never put the key in the ignition. It's going to tie into data across the board. It will be able to do things to any module that's on the data network, which in this case is pretty cool. So here's an example of how our interface is going to tie in with the data network. Here we have 3 modules in the truck: the body control module, memory seat module, and liftgate module. They're already tied in together by data. With our interface tied into the data stream, we can now tap into the BCM for pass lock and door status and door locks. We can tie into the memory seat module, turn on our heated seats. We can also go into the liftgate module for door locks. I know it says it twice, but it's the way these trucks work, as well as rear defrost. By tying into data with one wire, we're able to tap into a lot of systems that otherwise would have taken fucking forever to make it all work. So what's the deal with this accessory too? Well, keep in mind, this is not a real diagram. This is for illustrative purposes. For simplicity's sake, we're just going to say that Ruby Red has 4 ignition outputs. That would be ignition 1, ignition 2, accessory 1, accessory 2. Most aftermarket remote starters, Viper included, only has 3. That would be ignition 1, ignition 2, and accessory. What most aftermarket remote start companies do, Viper included, is they have additional outputs, but what you'll notice is, whereas these are big fat wires, these are very tiny wires. They're going to give you a small 200 milliamp ground circuit, and what that'll do is actually trip a relay. So you're going to have 2 constant powers to the relay. The Viper's going to send a small ground to the relay to turn it on, and that's what's going to give you your accessory 2 output to match what the vehicle has. How does the truck know if one of the 4 doors or the lift gates open? Well, it does it in 2 ways. For both of the front doors and the lift gate, it's a data message that gets sent to the body computer, BCM. But things are a little bit different for the rear doors. The rear doors are hardwired to the BCM. Now for a car security system, the security system probably needs to know if the doors are open. So how does this work? Well, once again, we're going to use our interface, which is going to tie into the data system. Now the interface can see if the liftgate or either of the front doors are open. If either of the front doors or the liftgate are opened, the interface is going to send a signal to the Viper, which is going to sound the alarm. It's also going to kill the starter. That's going back to that second layer of security. However, the interface nor the Viper would know if either of the rear doors have been opened. So the way to get around that is to tie into both of these hardwired circuits from the rear doors to the BCM and make that a second door trigger input to the Viper. Now no matter which door is open, the Viper is going to know, it's going to turn the siren on, it's going to kill the starter. The wire from the interface to the Viper, it's not a data message, it's hardwired, it just goes to ground. The Viper's not going to necessarily know which door was opened, but it's going to know that one of them's open and it's going to do its thing. So for the driver and passenger rear doors, here's our hardwired inputs to the BCM. What we're going to do is we're actually going to tap each of those circuits and wire them to the door trigger input of the Viper. Now we very well could just take one wire, splice these 2 together and run it to the Viper. But there's 2 possible problems that could happen. Number 1, whenever one of the doors opened, the BCM would get inputs for both of the doors, and if you have driver's information center, it'll turn the chimes on and drive me fucking nuts. That's a problem. The second thing would be if one of the 2 door switches actually developed a problem down the road. Now that we've got them wired together, it could throw off diagnostics. And while it wouldn't affect me because I can fix anything on these trucks, well, to somebody who's watching this, it might be a big deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie into both of these circuits, tie them together, send it to the Viper, but we're also going to dial isolate the wires. It's not as complicated as it sounds. What it means is that even though we've wired these 2 wires together, sent them down to the Viper, they cannot read each other. That's what the diodes are for. So the Viper can read this one, the Viper can read this one, but they can't read off of each other. And I'll do a little demonstration on that too. With all the research complete for Ruby Red, I'm going to come up with a parts list. I don't want to get halfway into this install and find out that I forgot something. I'm going to need the remote start system, of course, the interface to communicate over data, the second accessory relay and socket. You don't need a socket, but I'm going the socket route. Same with the firewall bushing. You don't need a firewall bushing, but I'm going the bushing route. Going to need 18 gauge wire and some diodes for the rear door triggers. Also miscellaneous install parts. That would be your tape, zip ties, crimp connectors, heat shrink, solder, as well as wire loom. And you see I got a note for Tessa. I've been watching this channel on YouTube, Car Audio Fabrication. They turned me on to this Tessa tape. This stuff is awesome. And of course we're going to need tools to actually do the install. That would be like your dikes, or your wire strippers, your crimpers, your soldering iron, your heat gun, miscellaneous hand tools, sockets, stuff to remove trim panels, pry tools, flush cutters, recommended by 5 Star Car Stereo. Awesome. And of course one of the best 1/4 inch ratchets I've ever bought, the Task Force 1/4 inch piece right here. All you clowns giving me shit for my Snap-on stuff, I've said this easily 10 years ago that this thing is awesome. Task Force all the way, motherfuckers. I work flat rate at my job, which means I get paid by the job. The faster I get jobs done, the more money I make. I've adapted to the new technology for doing jobs faster. So you are going to see some of this stuff. It's not essential. Go watch some of my old back in the day videos. I did everything with hand tools just to show you guys that it can all be done without fancy crap like this. This isn't a necessity. This is just for speed. I have to throw stuff like that in there because I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea that you need any of this unnecessary crap to do the job. You do not need like this. You don't need it. Need a hand installing your new stuff? Call us. We're happy to help with a 1-800 number. Check your email for a master sheet. Even little Skippy's got something to say about this situation right here. This is not a paid endorsement or anything. I'm not sponsored or affiliated with nobody. I chose to get the remote start system as well as the bypass, and even got this little relay through Crutchfield. There's a reason why. Yeah, this crap would have costed me a lot less money if I went through like eBay or Amazon versus Crutchfield. I did pay a lot more. Did I want to pay a lot more? No, of course not. Who the fuck wants to pay more money? But I know I'm getting it from a reputable source. I'll spare you guys on the lecture about why you shouldn't buy stuff like this from places like eBay or Amazon or what have you. Alright, so I've gone through the wiring diagrams for the remote start, the interface, and the vehicle. And I've come up with a number. The number is 40. There's going to be 40 connections made to make all this stuff work. Ruby Red needs 14 circuits tapped into. So with a general idea of what goes what in the where now, I can go ahead and I can start pre-wiring this stuff before I even go out to the truck. I'm not up with the times. I don't follow trends or none of that dumb shit, you know what I mean? But what's the deal with unboxing videos? Now this is probably old news to most people, but to motherfuckers like myself, this is news to me that there are people out there that make videos where they take stuff out of the box. Unboxing videos. What the fuck? Maybe I'll catch on to the trend. So working off the diagrams, I know I'm going to need 4 connectors for the Viper, 4 connectors for the interface. I don't know about you guys, but it's getting fucking hot in here. Now I did just make a couple changes behind the scenes just for my personal protection. If somebody can figure out what I did and how to bypass it, well, congratulations, you stole a 12-year-old truck with 190,000 miles on it. So I've got a lot of excess stuff going on here. Now what I want to do is try to trim some of this down. I'll take wires like this and go in groups of 4. Probably go about, I don't know, 3 inches or so. And just make a couple stagger cuts. Just like little steps. So that way none of these wires are touching each other. So our 4 connectors for the interface is now broken down to this, the 8 circuits that I need. I'm sorry I only have red heat shrink here. I don't have any of the large size black heat shrink. If this really offends you, you can always send me a self-addressed stamped envelope and I will write you a handwritten apology. Well, what do you think? A lot more manageable now. Not bad at all. So the next phase of this is going to be doing all the interconnections between the interface and the Viper. So these are going to get tied in directly to the Viper. So I can go ahead and take the other end of the twisty tie and tie these together since these are getting directly tied into the interface. Siren is going under the hood, along with hood pin. Gray is hood pin. Those guys are going to get to know each other very well, I might add. This is what's going into what I'm calling vehicle wiring. Parking light, tack, brake shutdown. They'll all be kind of grouped together. Some of these lengths of wires are just kind of out of control. So this was destination under the hood, which leaves activation, which is actually going to get wired to a switch in the dash, and then a second accessory, which is actually going to go to this relay. So the second accessory is going to the relay, then we're going to send horn honk the same way. So our vehicle wiring will just be these 3. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to wrap them up together. Them's are getting wired together. This gets wired inside. These 2 are cutting over this way. Now I already foresee one problem, and that is that this wire here, which is our horn honk, it's not quite long enough. I don't know exactly where this umbilical cord is going to go, how far it's going to reach. Ideally I would want this wire to stretch out, as far as the rest of them. Fortunately, one of the wires that I snipped out of here is black with a yellow stripe, which is the same color as the horn wire inside ruby red. So I'm going to take brown with the black stripe, which is our horn honk. I'll double check. Brown with black, horn honk output. And I'm actually going to extend it out using black with yellow. You guys don't understand how long actually taking the time to explain this shit actually takes. Probably why it took 2 years to make the last video. Blue and white, ground when running. Connects to dark blue, status out. So what we've got here is the door signal from the interface. It's going to go and it'll be the door trigger input to the Viper. They're already connected. All I got to do is when I run the wire to the rear door triggers, I connect it in the inside, we're good to go. On tiny wires like this, It's just faster just to solder them up. It's starting to come together. Getting real excited. Real excited. Some of the circuits in here are actually just going to get tied together. For instance, the constant power to the Viper will also be the constant power to the interface, and the same with the ground circuits. Now they also want you to wire up a parking brake signal. I'm just going to straight ground that thing so the remote start will always think the parking brake's on. Won't be a problem. Some wires like this one, I don't have any other small purple wires, so this purple wire is now going to be my data wire since it's a purple wire in the truck. It makes sense to me. So I'm going to get this power side cleaned up. Keep on moving. Alright, well, I kind of needed this mega table outside today, so that's why everything looks cleaned up. Trust me, it wasn't on purpose or by choice. And now we got what we were after here. This section is going to go under the hood for the hood pin, the siren. This section is going to get tied into the vehicle wiring. And this section goes right up to the steering column. One thing that might not be obvious is that I tested taped up to the point where anything that changed color, you're only going to see one side of the color change. So where I changed the brown black to a black yellow for the horn output, you only see the black and yellow. Where I changed data from an orange to a straight purple, or violet if you want to get technical, you only see the violet. So our bench prep is pretty much done. This would be a nice umbilical cord to be able to pull out as a unit from the dash. If you can picture all this stashed up in the dash, there's enough swing on this cord to be able to do any testing or service the fuses while keeping it hooked up to the vehicle. Alright, tonight's project is to build one of these rear door trigger harnesses. So the side with the silver band is what's going to go into the truck. So I've got some blue and green wire, just kind of match the factory wire. You guys know how many times I got to edit the bangs out? A lot. Now, I'm not going to tie in a whole 30-foot spool into this. Want the heat shrink to go fully past the diode. The whole point of this is so that the circuits don't touch each other. I'm adding on another piece of heat shrink just to really stiffen this joint up. So let's see if it works. Okay, so here's the door trigger harness. The one wire that's going to go up to the Viper. I've got the ground to the meter hooked up to it. Positive lead is going to the positive on the jump box. This is just a regular jumper wire. So if I ground the green wire, I'm reading ground here. But I'm not reading ground on the blue wire. If I ground the blue wire, I'm reading the ground. And if I ground the green wire, I'm not getting a reading. So even though green and blue are both wired to this green, they don't read ground off of each other. That's the point of having the diodes in there. So our rear trigger harness is built. It's going to be one less thing to do come install day. So one of the things I want to do is I want to delete tones 2 through 6. You ever hear a car alarm go through a series of weird sounds? I'm not a fan of that. I'd rather it just be one continuous That's probably the worst impersonation of a siren you've ever heard, but it is what it is. So to delete siren tones 2 through 6, cut the black/white wire loop coming from the base of the siren. Then I'm going to stagger the cut. This loop right here is for the soft chirp modes. That would be your arm and disarm chirps. There are times where you thought you disarmed the system but you didn't, and you open the door, you turn the key on. What this will do is it'll actually chirp soft for a couple seconds before it goes full blast. So I usually keep this one intact. So the siren has a long red and black lead. That's power and ground for the siren. So what I'll do is I'll separate power and ground right about to the point of this service loop. The mounting point for the siren itself is also going to be the ground for the siren. Give myself a little extra wiggle room. So now the only things coming out of the siren are the power wire and the ground wire. So the bread tie held onto the ring, give me something to pull against as I'm pushing the heat shrink down. And then I'm just going to try to hold it close to its shape while I heat up the heat shrink. That way when I'm installing this, it's not trying to fight me. In order to pass the wires for the siren, as well as the hood pin through the firewall, I'm going to do it the bushing route. Apparently you can't buy the Stinger version of this. I think that's what this is. It's just the Stinger version, just relabeled. Whatever. So these wires will pass through there like so. Then we'll tighten this guy down. That's going to give me a very tight seal. This end is going to be in the engine side. So this thing is going to go through the firewall itself. This nut's going to come on the back side, tighten it down, slide the wires through, then put this nut on. I want to be sure I know the right size hole before I drill into the truck. Now, according to the instructions, it says required hole saw 1/2 inch or 13 millimeter, but like Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. So I've got a scrap piece of ABS plastic, and I've got Mr. 1/2 inch. Alright, so I know a 1/2 inch hole is going to do the job. In the ignition harness here, I have 4 12-volt inputs. So I have 4 12-volt inputs that I need to the remote start. And these 12-volt inputs are going to be the outputs to the ignition, so they can't be little dingster connections. They've got to be solid. Now in Ruby Red, there's only 2. I could take 2 pairs and just splice them together to make 2 and then tie those 2 into this. But I'm going to try something different this time. I'm going to actually cut these 2 wires, the inputs to the ignition switch. Kind of like this. I already did some trial and error. It's going to be kind of like this. Got these heat shrinkable butt connectors. And I tried this out because I wanted to make sure I had a crimper that would give this thing a really tight seal. These are very important circuits, so I want to make sure I have a good connection. I think these are Paladin, but don't quote me on that. Blue Point doesn't make their own tools. That's how I'm going to make these connections. So red with the white stripe, red with the black stripe, they get tied into red. Solid red and solid red for accessory 2 is going to get tied into the red white. So now I know I've got my 12-volt inputs, 12-volt outputs to the ignition switch. This is memoirs of someone who's been working in silence for like the last hour and 10 minutes. I took a break from Facebook for a good year because I just got tired of stupid people posting stupid stuff. Okay, so in the original footage for this, I actually filmed the intermission and I went on this rant about Facebook and how it sucks. The intermission was funny and everything, but this is actually better. So this is intermission part 1. Because I mean, you guys can't sit here and watch a video for a couple hours. You gotta kind of get up, take a piss, roll one up. You know what I'm saying? It is with great joy that I'm announcing the death of an auto repair shop that I worked for. Departed this world April 3rd, 2020. It was founded 30 years ago, and over the last 30 years they served the area. I'm reading the eulogy just so you know. Everything was going great until they decided that the dollar was more important than anything else. It is then that they begin the transition of phasing out old, skilled, experienced technicians and replacing them with cheap laborers. What could go wrong, right? They believe that the future of auto repair required nothing more than watching YouTube videos and having a bucket of tools. I'm not exaggerating there, like a literal bucket of tools. Unfortunately, this change in personnel led to many misdiagnosed cars, many unnecessary repairs, many pissed off customers, and many terrible reviews on places like Yelp. Some of them are actually funny, I've read them, they're fucking hilarious. So I told you this would happen. If you're in the business of fixing cars, you need people that can actually fix cars. A guy watching a YouTube video is not a technician. It's a guy watching a YouTube video. You know what I'm saying? How do you take a shop that doesn't have a mortgage and is at a prime, easy to find location and still fuck that up? Like, how the fuck did you fuck that up? Don't get it twisted. They didn't fold up because of the coronavirus and all the shit that's been going on. That is not what happened at all. Good job. Just that is so fucking funny. Just so fucking funny. They didn't want to listen to someone who's educated and experienced, and look where they're at now. Standing 6 feet away from everybody else at the unemployment office. So here's the installation part of the plan. Got it broken down into 5 based on the way that the wire harness is built. We've got the ignition harness, the body connections, back to the rear fuse box, the underhood stuff, and the antenna. So what I'm going to do is remove all the necessary trim pieces and stuff to access all of this crap, wire it all up, and make sure everything works before I put it all back together. Your main ignition circuits are here. They can be found at the big connector underneath the steering column. There is a row on top and a row on bottom. They're not shown in this picture. Those are the little dinky wires. These are just the big meaty wires. Well, except for this one, he's a little pussy. My little notes here: red, red, white, pink, white, orange, brown, black with a yellow stripe, and yellow. So you need to find ignition 1. Well, it's C6. So you've got row C, number 6. That's pink. I will tell you this much, I don't know if I have a clip of it. Over time, this wire degraded. It looked orange. This wire looked yellow, but these were actually white and pink. You should always test these circuits before tapping into them. Anything shown with a star is not really a necessity for getting a remote starter to work in these trucks. Accessory 2 is debatable if it's even needed in these trucks for a remote start. Do your research on it, make your own decision. I side with people that do this professionally. If they say use accessory 2, I'm going to use it. Horn's not really a necessity, nor are the door triggers. So tack signals right here. This white wire inside the cluster connector. Inside the OBD2 connector, the purple wire is data. Inside the flasher, the fat white wire is the brake signal. Here we have the headlight switch. This connector, there's a gray wire with a black stripe in between light green and white. That is the parking light negative. There's a good grounding location right to the left of the steering column. Those are all the connections under the dash. I just wanted you guys to see that I was wearing safety glasses. You know, safety first. Always take a shirt off before you take a shit. So in the underhood fuse box, you're going to see that this wire is disconnected. I took it off from the nut on the left side of the mega fuse right there. That power wire goes back to the rear fuse box. And with power cut, well, I can take that wire off of the rear fuse box. So the light blue wire, F10, this one I just tested for the driver's rear door. This one in the top corner, that would be A12, and that's going to be for the right rear door. So I'll get my meter set up, and when my buddy closes this door, it should stop beeping. Wait, who's that in your hand?
Sir Meows a Lot.
Sir Meows a Lot. Alright, go ahead, Sir Meows a Lot. Alright, no continuity. Go ahead and open it. So we know that the wire we're testing is definitely connected to the right rear door. Thanks, man. Thanks, Sir Meows a Lot. Hey, Sir Meows a Lot. Get the fuck off my tools. So now that I know for sure which wires I got to tap into, come up with a plan here. Whoa, wait, whoa, what is this? What the fuck are you doing? I don't want this part of the diode harness to like fold over or anything, so I'm just trying to find a good spot to stash her where it won't get in any trouble. And I think right under here is going to be a good spot for it.
Probably it is.
So I can just have these two wires. Well, thanks, buddy. So I can have these two wires just come up here like this. Just so you know, that will be in the video.
Do not delete it. Meow, 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 meow.
Damn it, Meows a Lot. So this is the BCM right here. And as you saw, the door triggers come up through this connector. Now from the fuse block, those circuits pass through this ribbon harness. And that's why you kind of have to tap them on this side of the fuse block connector, because there's no hard wire to bite into. Would have been more convenient if you could get them right here. It is what it is. There's a lot of pussies out there. A lot of pussy managers out there. Just fucking pussies who want to complain that a workshop is dirty. The most important thing for the technician is to make money. I don't know if anybody broke that to you in y'all management school. Management at my work tried some shit where they were like, guys, at 4:30 on Friday we're going to stop working and we're going to clean the shop. And I'm like, alright, but y'all motherfuckers are paying me, right? Well, no. Well, no. Then I'm working on the cars until 5 o'clock and getting paid accordingly. At my work, I don't work in filth. I mean, if a car dumps out steering fluid everywhere, I clean the shit up, you know what I'm saying? But I don't go detailing my bay every day, you know what I'm saying? Who the fuck's got time to do that? Especially when you don't get paid to do that, you know what I'm saying? The guys that complain about a dirty work area usually have one thing in common. They're fucking pussies. You know what I mean? I'm in the middle of doing something that I'm going to get paid for. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing and tidy up just to show you guys a clean workbench while I plastic bond these clips on. I'm not fucking doing that. This is realistic. This is what shit really is when you're really doing stuff. You know what I mean? This must be brought to you by the same assholes that said all mechanics should dress exactly the same and have their shirts tucked in and cover up their tattoos or whatever. Get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? So you guys want a management class, a clean shop, or matching uniforms, or tattoos covered up. None of that shit's important. The important thing is fixing the cars in a timely fashion and getting paid. That's what's important. Well, and not having the cars come back, that's also important too. I worked at a place and I was actually paid by the hour. And this guy, when he would be in a bad mood, he would just nitpick how dirty the shop was. And it's like, okay, I'll sweep the floor for Class B technician pay. And I took my time the entire time. Well, while you guys are standing around jerking off because your shop's all cleaned up, look, I got shit to do. I ain't got time for that. For the most part, remote starters will work as soon as you get them hooked up. But on cars like this with data for shit, the bypass usually has to be programmed first before the remote start will work. Now the processes for programming the interface as well as the remote start, it varies specific to the unit that you're installing, so I'm not going to go into detail showing exactly how to program this, but the goal here is just to make sure that it works, you know, before I put it back together. So now that I know that it all works, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do some finishing touches to the umbilical cord part of the harness, particularly taping up these fuses. Just a little tip, since I'm going to be wiggling this thing up into the dash, I don't want like a piece of metal or an end of a screw to touch one of these fuses because, well, it'll pop the fuse. So a little bit of cheap insurance, put some tape over these things, and we'll just keep on moving. Now that I've got everything working, I've got everything marked that I want to change in the user settings. You've got to be able to read and follow this exactly as it's written to be able to get in here and change any of this stuff. Even something you might not think is important, like opening a door, you have to do it. In some cases, getting the programming done is harder than actually doing the install. So I want to make sure I got this right. So open the door, ignition on, ignition off. I'm going to press the button on the antenna. The longer you hold the button, the different menu it's going to take you to. And then you want to do a tap to get to the right selection. And then you're going to use lock or unlock to set which feature you want on. I want to turn the confirmation chirps off. I don't want to hear a chirp every time I lock the truck. So open the door, on, off, press and hold. Well, I can't just leave this guy sitting there like that. He'll probably be rattling around. So I've gone ahead and I've marked all the holes with a centering punch. So we're going to have a plastic brain on a plastic panel up there without a really secure connection. So we need some kind of buffer so this thing don't rattle. I used to use second skin for this, but I don't have any extra right now. So we're going with the camper tape. This thing doesn't have to win any awards for being pretty. No one, except for you guys, are ever going to see it. And even if you guys don't like it, I don't give a fuck. I'm not the one riding around with rattles in the dash. There gonna be no rattles in this dash. And if I ever need to service this thing, just clip off these two zip ties, pull her down, she'll be ready for service. Hopefully I never have to pull it down now. Oh. I always like to double check it after I do that part. Now for the rest of this, anywhere that the remote start is connected to itself, like say like attaching this wire here for instance, that's going to get a black zip tie. But anywhere that this harness gets connected to the car, it's going to get a color zip tie. Now I got to put all this shit back in. Still not as bad as the Trailblazer. If you've ever wanted any kind of indication as far as how many times I've had this dash apart on Ruby Red, well, I totally forgot that metal shield. Alright, so I'm going to throw in a little tip here. Even though the remote start works, like I just showed you, it's not done. I never hooked up the siren, I never hooked up the hood pin, and I never hooked up the door triggers. I can still drive Ruby Red to work tomorrow. That's something to keep in mind if you're doing this yourself. Don't be like, I've got to get it done today, because that's usually when shit fucks up, you know what I'm saying? Now, because the rear door triggers are frequently overlooked, that's why I want to make sure to cover them. So if I got to wait till next weekend to do it, it's no big deal. If somebody wants to steal Ruby Red or the contents, go right ahead. That's what insurance is for. You know what I'm saying? And today, presenting the importance of having this thing being serviceable and the importance of being able to have someone to talk to if shit doesn't work out right. So the day of installation, everything worked flawlessly. I operated the remote starter many times. I had no issues whatsoever. However, the next morning, I fired up the remote starter and the horn started going off. After some troubleshooting, come to find out the factory alarm was being set when the car was being remote started. Further troubleshooting revealed that this interface does not send a disarm only signal. That signal has to be hardwired from the remote starter to the truck. A disarm only signal is when it'll send a signal to disarm the OEM alarm but not unlock the doors. Now the temporary workaround would be to unlock the truck, remote start the truck, lock the truck. That shit gets old. That's not what I want. I just want to push the button twice and the truck starts up. So today's project is to find the factory alarm disarm wire, light green wire in the driver's door module, and wire it into the Viper. Need to tap this light green wire. That's going to be the factory alarm disarm. We've got to run it through the door, through the boot, and then tie it into the Viper. Alright, hopefully I can do this with no edits, but let's just see how much is involved to get this thing into service mode. I might have to edit that out. Ta-da! This doesn't send that over data for some reason. It's no big deal. Now I'm not quite ready to box this thing up again yet. What I've done is I've plugged everything back in, including the driver's door module. Thanks to my meticulous record keeping about what's going on, I know that the system has to be armed for at least an hour before this fuckery takes place. So I'm going to hit lock on the Viper, it's going to lock all the doors, and then we're going to wait an hour and see if it'll remote start without setting the factory alarm off. So what I did was I armed that thing, turned on the stopwatch. It's been sitting for 2.5 hours. Let's give her a try. Fuck yeah. Alright, so I want to go over the timeline of this whole remote start deal. So we have Sunday the 29th. I got the remote start part wrapped up. The install's complete. It works. Some things were not completed, like the hood pin, the siren, the rear door triggers, but at the end of the day, I had a remote starter that worked. Fast forward to Monday morning, I get up, I turn the remote start on, and the horn starts honking. I pressed unlock on the Viper fob, the horn stopped going off. It did unlock the doors, I just locked them again. I thought that was weird. I tried it a couple times at work, the horn never went off again, figured it was just a fluke. Fast forward to the next day, New Year's Eve. Well, the same thing happened in the morning. Now I'm at work, so I have limited time. I tried to troubleshoot what I could. One thing I noticed was, again, I couldn't get this problem to duplicate at work. I would arm the system, I would do a remote start, and it worked. I didn't have any problems. So that night when I got home, I went out with the Tech 2 and I was just monitoring the door triggers. At no time did any of them glitch or anything crazy happen. This is when I noticed that there was a delay. If I armed the Viper and waited about an hour, if I did a remote start after that hour, then the horn would go off. So I had some more evidence. So I was off for New Year's, continued with the troubleshooting. Remember, I have to wait an hour to have another crack at this to catch it while it's in the act. So one of the first things I did, even though the siren's not hooked up, I could still test that brown wire under the hood. Was it getting 12 volts? And that's when I noticed that when the horn was going off during the remote start, the siren was not getting a 12 volt signal. So I waited an hour again and did the same thing, remote started it with the Viper, the horn was beeping, and that's when I noticed that I could turn the horn off with this. So that eliminated the Viper as the cause of all this. Now it's time to put a tech call in. I made a tech call on fucking New Year's. I kind of censored it here just so you guys didn't get offended by the F word. But it was on fucking New Year's. I was actually able to talk to somebody on fucking New Year's. That's just awesome. The tech guy did not specifically say that the flash logic does not send out a disarm only signal over data. But what he did say was the Viper disarm only has to be tied in directly as an input to the driver's door module. So I kind of read between the lines. Now I was back at work Thursday and Friday. I didn't have time to fuck with it. I did some research and I'm going to get into that for just a hot minute here because it is something interesting about Ruby Red. But we get to today. I wire in the disarm signal to the driver's door module, verified operation. I let the thing sit for a couple hours, even though I was consistently able to do it after an hour of sitting. I verified that the OEM alarm is disarmed prior to a remote start without unlocking the doors, which is all I wanted. So really, this OEM remote now can kiss my ass. Replacing the Viper would not have fixed this. Replacing the interface would not have fixed this. Nothing would have fixed this except hardwiring a disarm-only signal to pulse the driver's door module prior to a remote start. Nothing else would have fixed it. And that's why it was worth paying more money for the same thing I could have got on Amazon. My 03 does not need a disarm signal to do a remote start. Even if you were to say that it was something handled by the GM DLBP over data, well, I don't even have the disarm wire from the remote start in it hooked up. If you turn to page 13-234 of your shop manual and go into content theft deterrent description and operation, there is nothing in here about this being set under normal circumstances. The CTD system does not affect engine starting. Well, wait a minute. If it's a theft deterrent, how the fuck will it let the engine start? So I'm reading through all this, and of course one of the things it says here is inspect for aftermarket devices which could affect the operation of the pass lock system. What does pass lock have to do with anything? And also, good job of just having the dealer just blame the aftermarket remote start for this problem. Even though we have a description and operation here, there's also a system description here. Why they're not on the same page, I don't know. The content theft system is controlled by the body control module. The body control module monitors the state of the doors, rear, lift gate, lift glass, and the ignition switch. The ignition switch. The fucking ignition switch. When the proper conditions are met, the BCM enables the content theft system. The BCM will sound the horn and flash the lights when unauthorized entry has been detected. But wait a minute. That can't be because the body computer never saw a door open. Okay, so I get it. The body computer thinks that a bad guy took a cinder block, smashed out the windshield, he climbed into Ruby Red, he was able to get the ignition cylinder to rotate without breaking the pass lock sensor and started the car, but then at the same time turned on the alarm. That makes perfect fucking sense. So if the BCM is the head honcho here with the content theft deterrent system, and its inputs are the signals from the driver's door module and passenger door module as far as the door ajar status, the rear door triggers, rear compartment ajar switch from the liftgate module, transmitter lock unlock from the liftgate control module, and pass lock status. Okay, well wait a minute. It let the car start. Like we fooled it with the interface that, hey, pass locks a go. What the fuck? Door latch assembly, driver C3, but it has an RPO call out here. Why would there be an RPO call out for a specific connector in the door latch assembly? I think I've got some more research to do. So there's two things I want to talk about here. Number one, I have a problem with my own vehicle. So what am I going to do? I'm going to collect evidence. I want as much information as possible as far as what's going on with this thing. You know what I'm saying? In the case of this aftermarket remote start sets off factory alarm intermittently, it took a while to actually get enough evidence to say exactly what was going on. This is why in at least 2 road tests where I just rip customers apart because they're not doing a motherfucking thing to provide any kind of information to fix their car. You see what I'm saying? Their car. Like I'm some fucking magician that just instantly can fix your fucking car when you can't even duplicate the fucking problem. But that's a topic for another discussion. Actually, it's a topic for another road test. What I'm getting at here is I flame these motherfuckers on the road test because this was actually going on in my real life. This is why. I want to get my car fixed. I'm going to go and do whatever it takes to get enough evidence to try to help come to a conclusion. And who was I helping? Well, technical support. That's actually the part 2 of this. Now, spanning the course of a couple years on the forums, a lot of penny pinchers would give me shit for recommending places like Crutchfield. You know what I'm saying? The thing is that on New Year's Day, I was actually able to call Crutchfield technical support, talk to someone who knows about car alarms and remote start systems, and get a good plan as far as what the next step to do is to get this motherfucker right. Had I had more time leading up to New Year's Day and was actually able to get the whole 1 hour thing figured out and determine that it was the OEM alarm that was going off during a remote start after sitting for at least an hour, had I got this information like first thing in the morning, then what I did today, Saturday the 4th, would actually have been done on New Year's Day. Which means I would have got the advice to fix my car and actually fix the car on New Year's Day. Think about that shit. Just think about it. I mean, that's just fucking awesome. Just a reminder, I'm not getting any kind of compensation for saying any of this crap. So don't even fucking try. Don't even think I'm just saying this to butter them up. Because you know that if they were sponsoring this thing, I wouldn't be able to say motherfucking thing. At least I don't think so. My whole point of this is, if I would have gone the penny pincher route and got this sophisticated crap from like Amazon or eBay, there would have been nobody to call on New Year's Day. Which would you rather do? Double tap remote start and have the car start and the car stays locked? Or unlock the car, double tap to remote start the car, then relock the car. But wait, you can't relock the car with this one while it's running, so you've got to use this one to relock the car. Which would you rather do? I'd rather do the 2 taps to remote start the car and it stays locked. If you do it the other way, you're doing it like an asshole. Now I'm wondering if there's a disarm wire in my O3. See, I hate not knowing stuff. I'd rather know it. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like a mental illness that I want to know how stuff works. Then again, that desire to learn, it got me where I am. Well, that plus the prayers, the training, and the vitamins. Can you imagine calling one of those jackass penny pinchers from the forums from back in the day? Calling them up like, yo, what's good, man? Happy New Year's. Hey, listen, intermittently, Ruby Red, she won't disarm the OEM alarm when I do remote start only. What do you think his answer would be? I've been using Crutchfield for like 15 years, especially when it comes to sophisticated crap, like my PRS-80, I got it from Crutchfield. The remote starts for like 3 out of my 4 cars that are here, got it from Crutchfield. The interfaces, all from Crutchfield. And again, it's not because I just want to, I just want to spend more money like a fucking asshole. It's, no, I know what kind of service I'm going to get. You know what I'm saying? What's the phrase I used when I did the remote start video? Well, you're probably actually watching it right now. What's the phrase I used earlier on in the video? I wasn't going to give you the lecture of why to buy authorized or whatever. Well, this is like part of the lecture why you should buy authorized. And particularly through them because of the customer service. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, this all kind of worked out because I showed you guys the reasoning for installing it in a way that kept serviceability in mind, and then turn around that not only did I have to service it in a way, add a circuit to the driver's door module, but I also had to call tech support, which was something that was mentioned about why I use Crutchfield. I mean, that's crazy. You can't make this shit up. Like, I did not plan this. Like, Monday morning, I was just like, Why the fuck is the horn going off? I was like, I can't believe this. Because it worked fine all day the day before. However, I didn't let the shit sit longer than an hour during my testing. I shouldn't have had to. Pass lock knew what was going on. The door locks knew what was going on. It was all good in the hood. I did the remote start. When I came out, the heated seats were on. Both of the side mirrors were defrosted and the rear window was defrosted. It did it all over data. They really need to make an easy access thing so you can still vape while wearing the mask. You know, I saw a coronavirus themed porno video, and all it was the girl was wearing a mask with the hole cut out. I know a couple guys are going to have a problem that I didn't show the connections made at the ignition switch. And the reason is because I don't want inexperienced, uneducated people to go out and cut those wires. In a worst case scenario, a poor connection to one of those primary ignition switch inputs would be that the car shuts off while you're driving. Well, what happens when a car shuts off while you're driving? Well, you can't accelerate, you can't get out of danger's way. You lose power steering because the power steering doesn't work anymore. Also, without engine vacuum, you don't have power brakes. It could be catastrophic, and I don't want to plant the seed in anybody's head that they should be cutting wires at the ignition switch. Whether you think what I did is right or wrong, it honestly doesn't affect me at all. I know that I did the right thing by putting a disclaimer up at the beginning that you guys are not going to see the wires at the ignition switch be cut. You know what I mean? That way I can still sleep at night. So I posted a picture about this remote starter on my personal Facebook, and really the reason that I posted the picture was because the way I was holding the Viper and the interface, it looked like a doctor delivering a newborn. I thought it was pretty cool. And one of the things that I said in the post was, you know, I don't install these for people because people are just cheap. You know what I'm saying? And to people, my time's not really that valuable. Newsflash, my time is very valuable. You know what I'm saying? So in that post, I directed people to their local car audio shop. I just said, for $500, they'll probably be able to hook you up. You won't get to install anything like what you just saw right here. You know what I mean? You will get a working remote starter. But just don't expect the quality of the install to match what you just saw here. I can throw up pictures of some just disaster pieces that have crossed paths with me over the years. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe not. Who knows? What the fuck is up with 2020? Obviously the time continuum has been fucked up, creating this alternate reality. Allow me to illustrate. This line represents 2020. It then continues here with predictions based on data. Somewhere, this timeline skewed, creating this alternate timeline where the data is wrong. Most of these data points go hand in hand with each other, except for, actual subscribers. That's something I don't really have control of. But I can look at data and say, by September, October, at this rate, I'll have 50,000 subscribers, give me more time to put more content up, raise the funds for the giveaway, and have the time to do all that shit. In this alternative 2020 that we're living in right now, subscribers came way sooner than expected, which I'm not complaining about, thank you. But my available time to create content, to get up the money, all fucking went downhill. The only way to restore this timeline back to where the data was right is to go back in 2020 to the point where the data changed. So we got to go back 4 months. This is all related to the coronavirus. So all of this stuff kind of tied in together. When I look at numbers and shit and data, I kind of use that data to make predictions. My prediction was that if I was to earn 50,000 subscribers, it would probably be in the fourth quarter of 2020. So having a boost of subscribers, which earned me 50,000, was definitely something that is awesome. But around the same time, shit happened that was not awesome. The coronavirus came. For some reason, buying a car is essential, so we're not closing down. However, since people are taking a lockdown seriously, they're not going to get their cars fixed, which means your pay is going to go down, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's one strike. The second strike is my kid's school shut down, and they switched to remote learning, which means that my time, which would normally be spent on YouTube content, is now helping my kid with remote learning. I'm not complaining about it, but it took up a chunk of my personal time, like every day. You know what I'm saying? Also, I learned just how horrible Common Core math is. they wanted a first grader to write an equation for 9 plus 6 equals 15. It's like, 9 plus 6 equals 15 is the fucking equation, you fucking assholes. The third thing in this trifecta of shit, I had to have surgery done. You can probably hear I sound not like myself. My shit's still healing up, you know what I'm saying? It was also a great time to learn that my health care has a $4,000 deductible. So, in summary, I get my hours at work cut, my time at home cut, and my finances cut. For what? I didn't do shit, you know what I'm saying? So in summary here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat 2020 as though it has a 4-month reset. So I'm going to continue to put out the content that was already filmed, and then hopefully we can get through this coronavirus. My work gets picked back up. I have a little bit of fundage because, you know, like this subscriber giveaway, that's all funded by me. And I don't take outside handouts from anyone. I don't do Patreon. You can't give me money on PayPal. I don't want nothing from nobody, you know what I mean? Instead of coming up and making a video and just saying, oh, 2020 sucks and all that, I'd rather just put it into the video I was currently working on, which was this remote start video. In the meantime, the way to get any kind of updates is on my Twitter page, you know what I mean? I won't just make a YouTube video saying, hey, this is what's going on, guys, because you guys don't really give a fuck, you know what I'm saying? A summary of a summary. Like I said, I'm going to go, I think there's like 4 or 5 videos I still got to put up. Hopefully by that time, people will just start following CDC guidelines so we can stop the coronavirus. We can get the kids back in school. My work can pick back up, and I'll have the fundage to give away some fat shit for the 50,000 subscriber special. So thanks for watching. If you like what you see, subscribe. If you don't, nobody, and I mean nobody on this motherfucking planet gives a fuck. Eat a dick. Yeah, and one more thing. So, I just been standing in front of this camera for like 20 minutes, wearing a fucking mask. Yeah, my diva glasses fog up a little bit, but it's not really a big deal, you fucking pussies. Good morning, party people, or afternoon, or well, I guess it depends on what time of the day you're watching this video. Today's road test is brought to you by the 2013 Kia Rio. Listen, if you guys need a car that sucks, look no further. This Kia Rio has everything that you could possibly want in a car that sucks. Highly recommend it. Actually, this road test is not brought to you by the 2013 Kia Rio, which means I can say whatever the fuck I want, including the fact that this car sucks. Well, enough about the stupid Rio. Something to discuss. I talked about this before, but I have new breaking news on this topic. The topic is Patreon. So there's this girl. I don't know her personally. She's got big titties and she's hot. What can I say? So she made a post the other day that basically said, this is why I'm taking down my Patreon. Do not get it twisted. I've never given anybody anything on Patreon, including her. So she talked about why she got rid of Patreon. Most of the points aren't related to what I'm talking about, but there's 2 that are related because it's a common theme with people that do automotive repair videos and then ask for handouts through Patreon. So 2 key points was, she created the Patreon because she needed money for cameras and equipment. So that's point 1. Point 2 was, it takes time to edit videos. Those 2 points are things that people that do automotive repair seem to latch on to when they're trying to make their Patreon pitch. Cameras and equipment. How many fucking cameras do you need? I've made a couple 100 videos with millions of views, and I've done it with 2 cameras, 3 if you include this one, which is my phone for road test stuff, or just shit that just pops up at work or whatever. 2 cameras. One was my Dinosaur Mini DV, and then the other one was HD technology. I mean, what the fuck are y'all using? Disposable HD video cameras? Who the fuck needs a budget for cameras? I'm on my 2nd tripod. The first one, it got me by. I limped it together for a long time, upgraded it, and then that's it. So in hundreds of videos and millions of views, 2 cameras, 2 tripods, 1 phone. Then the other one, these videos take time to edit. See, people wised up to the whole just do raw footage and then they just show the whole thing, including parts where you fuck up and, you know, the whole process of running a screw all the way down. People want editing, you know what I mean? They want the shit to be not necessarily faster, but to edit out a lot of the filler, the unnecessary stuff. Go back in some of my back in the day videos. There's filler in it. I wasn't that good at editing. Never went to school for it. Self-taught. But I'm getting derailed here. What they're saying is that they need financial compensation through Patreon to pay them to edit the videos. So you want to get paid for editing the videos because they take time to edit. You want to get paid for that. Let me see how that makes sense. It doesn't. Because the end result is you put the video on YouTube and then you get paid. Why do you need to get paid through Patreon for that? That's kind of like why you do that work, to get paid for it. So you want to get paid for doing the work that you get paid for by putting the video up. Do you see how much sense that doesn't make? It makes no sense, but then again, they're the ones using the fucking disposable HD video cameras, so shouldn't be surprised. So recently, some fucking automotive channel on YouTube, I don't even want to call it an automotive channel. Recently, some asshole on the internet got on my radar. The extent of the repairs that he shows is taking bottles of magic piss and pouring it into his car and telling you that it's like fixed and whatever. He's getting views and subscribers, and I mean, really, good for him. That's fucking awesome. But why the fuck is this cocksucker asking for fucking handouts through Patreon for cameras and equipment and the time it takes to edit videos? I mean, dude, that's what you're getting paid for already. That's what the ads are paying for. That's why you're taking them links and then changing them to make it look like the links are actually going to take you to somewhere for more information about products, but actually it's just to an Amazon affiliate page where you get paid based on what you sell through that link. It's a real scumbag shit. Stop buying disposable HD video recorders. Understand that the work that you're doing is to get good videos that people will watch and get views and play ads, and you get a little change off of it. You know what I'm saying? Why wouldn't I support the girl with the big titties on Patreon? Dude, porn is like everywhere and it's free on the internet. I'm not paying somebody. That's like going to the store and buying 5 pounds of oxygen. Yes, I'd like some oxygen, please. It's free and it's everywhere, you fucking assholes. That's like for like horny, desperate people that like, maybe if I give this girl enough stuff, she'll acknowledge my presence or whatever. That's fucking pathetic. Hire a fucking hooker, you know what I'm saying? A hot one. Yeah, maybe I am old and bitter about the whole thing, but I was doing this before motherfuckers even got paid for doing it, you know what I'm saying? I did it more for a hobby. And well, if you guys know my story, then you know what the fuck the deal was. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna keep repeating that shit.